Greetings indie warriors and welcome to I Dream of Indie Games. My name is Ole Gamer Joe and today we are taking a very special look at Crown Gambit. Just recently released on the Steam PC platform as of June 18th, this is a story-rich narrative tactical game with card-based combat. Crown Gambit is currently priced at $17.99 here in North America, with a promotion running until July 2nd that knocks 10% off of that price. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of all the details, we want to take a moment to thank Playdigious Originals for sponsoring this video. Of course, this sponsorship will have no influence on our thoughts and feelings on the game, but instead we will share with you our honest impressions on the first few hours of gameplay. Just letting you know for full transparency and so that you're aware that this is not a full review of the game. If you do end up enjoying what you see today, please consider using our link in the description box below to purchase the game for yourself. So what exactly sets Crown Gambit apart from the ever-growing pile of card-based strategy games already available on Steam? Well, we should begin at the beginning, I suppose. Crown Gambit has a deep narrative full of branching dialogue choices that can lead to various outcomes, which make it much more story-focused than your average card battler. The game commences with a brief cutscene that explains the lore of the Kingdom of Miodred. Long ago, the people of this world were gifted godly relics that contained great power. But with great power comes great responsibility, a responsibility that the mere mortals simply weren't prepared for, and they fought to the death for possession of these tools. That is until the one relic to rule them all was revealed, the Crown of Azertor. This most powerful relic was used to unify the realm with the help of the four houses and helped form the capital Marzon Castel and the Kingdom of Miodred as we find it during our playthrough. The rest of the relics are dispersed to a group of paladins that serve the royal family. Years of peace and prosperity come to pass before the main characters of our story, paladins Rollo, Aliza, and Hael, find themselves tasked with escorting the king and his young son across the land. What should be a simple escort mission quickly becomes far more complex than they initially anticipated and sends the player headfirst into a grand adventure.
And so at last our story begins, with our three paladins charged to escort the king and his last-born son across the lands.
Before embarking on this quest, you can choose from one of four difficulty options. There's Novice, Soldier, Knight, and Paladin. I chose Novice since I was uncertain where my skill level would put me in the context of this game, but you can change this setting at any time as long as it's not during combat. Novice gives bosses lower HP, while your characters will have increased HP and fully recover after each battle. Soldier is more of your standard combat with no adjustments to HP and only a small amount of recovery after battles, while Knight and Paladin have you at more of an overall disadvantage. Once you've chosen your preferred challenge level and received the rundown of the origin of Miodred, you're quickly thrust into your first sample of combat via the game's brief tutorial. Each battle occurs on a grid where your player characters face off against the cards of your foes. Each character card has a set number of action points for each turn, as well as HP to keep track of. If the HP of any character reaches 0, their card is taken off of the playing field. The action points can be used for movement across the board, attacks, encouragement of your comrades, or special skills, which are unique to each character and are kept in a hand of cards at the bottom of your screen. Your goal, as you might expect, is to destroy the enemies before they destroy you. When you're not in combat is where the game's narrative focus really shines. You'll travel through various paths, facing many encounters with both friends and foes. With most encounters, you'll be able to choose to either engage with this stranger or ignore them and go on your merry little way. If you do choose to engage, these encounters can either result in a positive interaction with a like-minded spirit, or an all-out brawl if you mess with the wrong group. Sometimes the way you choose to interact with these individuals will make all the difference in how the segment plays out, so you'll have to choose your words carefully if you want to avoid conflict, which I certainly do. But you know, conflict isn't always a bad thing, as Crown Gambit does have a leveling system. Leveling up a character can grant them new abilities which are added to their deck. You can also gain perks from a successful encounter, like healing or enhancements for your health or shield. Other encounters will involve chase sequences, where you'll need to act quickly to catch up with a fleeing foe or flee from an encounter yourself. The card theme here is a really unique spin on fleeing combat that I haven't quite seen before in other games. Throughout your travels, you'll also face off against powerful boss-like foes, which will require you to strategize and use everything you've learned through combat to succeed, and you'll certainly be given the tools to do so. Another factor that comes into play, particularly when facing off against bosses, is your ancestral powers, which are more powerful versions of your special skills that you use by flipping over a card. But nothing in Crown Gambit comes without consequence, as building up your ancestral form of the card gets the skill banned, and it can no longer be used during that battle. Using too much of your ancestral skills also raises the ancestral gauge of that particular character, which can influence how they behave in encounters outside of combat. Essentially, it will make that particular paladin more quick-tempered, which can have a dramatic influence on how the story plays out. These effects are semi-permanent, as only certain types of events can clear your ancestral gauge, so you'll definitely want to use these powers wisely. There's certainly more to it than this, but in essence, Crown Gambit has a deep yet easy to understand combat system that will require a good bit of strategy for those looking to be challenged, but is also quite well explained and accessible for those that are more interested in the story than the combat. Difficulty options make that all the more true, as I certainly didn't find myself too challenged on the novice difficulty, making it a great way to begin my playthrough and really get a feel for the mechanics. The story, while certainly playing into a lot of classic fictional tropes, is one well worth reading. Each character has their own unique demeanor, meaning you'll really want to read through each character's dialogue options before choosing how to respond in any given situation. The folks you'll meet along the way are also varied and interesting, from spiritual groups to bandits. They all have their own motivations, and it keeps gameplay quite fresh and interesting, making for a great way to break up the card combat. There's also something to be said about the overall presentation of Crown Gambit, which is bold and distinctive. The high contrast character portraits are reminiscent of woodblock printing art with bold lines and excellent use of exaggerated shadows and highlights to create mood and emotion. The backgrounds are fairly simple and dark, typically featuring the silhouette of trees and towns, but it allows for the portrait art to shine at front and center, as it should. There is also some great dramatic music to accompany the art, filled with frantic strings and horns that set the tone for battle. Sound effects aren't too intrusive, nicely punctuating what is already a well-made presentation. All told, even as someone that isn't always fond of card-based combat, I do think that Crown Gambit is a well-made product that will appeal to fans of not just card battlers, but those that love a well-told story with impactful dialogue choices. The 4 distinct difficulty options make it so almost anyone can pick up and play this title, and the overall presentation is sure to be a feast for the senses. Crown Gambit is already sitting at a very positive rating on Steam, and honestly, I'm not all that surprised because I had a great time getting to know this title. Once again, a sincere thank you to Playdigious Originals for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out Crown Gambit for yourself on Steam, and also be sure to use our link in the description box below and grab it on discount before July 2nd. Voice to the voiceless, and I'll see you on the channel for more great indie gaming coverage.